welcome to my talk. I'm really happy to be part of stackconf 2021. It's an awesome conference and it's really an honor to be here. I will talk today about how Nextcloud stayed productive during COVID-19 and how others did the same. My name is Frank Karlitschek. I'm a computer scientist, German, as you can hear. Open source contributor for many years, over 20 years now. Founded lots of different projects and initiatives, but I'm probably most well known to be the founder of Nextcloud, and that's of course also the topic today. I will talk a little bit about the current COVID-19 challenges that we all have, how we work inside Nextcloud, also with Nextcloud, obviously. Then a little bit about our open source community, which is also distributed, obviously, some social aspects, and then a summary. So the current challenges, I mean, we all know the situation where we are. The last year was not easy. We had a global pandemic, which brought a lot of challenges for all of us. So first of all, most of us worked from home. Remote work was something that was standard for some companies like Nextcloud, but for some others it was a huge cultural shift. And this, of course, is a result of the social distancing that we all had to do. There's a big change for a lot of people. Another thing is, of course, that schools were closed most of the time, which brought additional challenges to us. We had our children at home, we had to take care of them. This interacted with our work environment, so this were all mixed together, which brought a lot of challenges to all of us. Then, of course, also for an open source community like Nextcloud, this also meant a lot of changes. I mean, our community is obviously remote and distributed from all over the world, but we had our events. So here, for example, you see a photo of our last Nextcloud conference that we had in 2019, where really hundreds of people came together in Berlin here, and we celebrated and worked together and brainstormed and shaped the future of the project. Obviously, this can't happen anymore, and this is also a challenge that comes with the current pandemic. And there's of course on the social side, the influence all of this has on ourselves. So there's a lot of depression, social isolation going on, and this can be really hard for a lot of people, and that's another challenge that we all have, but also for our companies and our communities. So what does this mean for the future? Obviously, hopefully the pandemic will be over soon, but some of those changes stay, and there's some interesting learnings that we all can have from this situation, and that's of course the topic of this talk here now. So the question is, will we go back to offices like that? I mean, some of you remember like super crowded offices where we all work together very loud. Obviously, if there's a virus here in the air, right, that's not a good idea. So will we go back to that? That's an interesting question. What about crowded meetings? I mean, there are a lot of companies and organizations that really need their meetings. I mean, if you don't do a meeting, then you can't really work together. This is the company culture of a lot of companies. So will there be meetings like that again? And this is of course the topic I want to talk about, because at Nextcloud we always had a remote work culture. With Nextcloud, of course, we have this very big international community of contributors from all over the world. I mean, they're not in the same office, right? They're not in the same meeting. They always did remote work. And of course, then there's also the company. I mean, as a company, the Nextcloud GmbH, we have employees from over 13 countries. So again, they're all not in the same office and not in the same meeting. And how can we do that? And that's something I want to talk about here today. Obviously, we use Nextcloud as a tool, so we are in a very lucky situation that our product that we produce, Nextcloud, is also software for exactly that situation. So Nextcloud can be used for remote work, and that's what we did. So what is important? What are the important principles? What are the things that we always follow at Nextcloud, but of course we are a lot amplified the last few months in the pandemic. So the first is, I think it's really important to give everybody in the company the flexibility in time, place and speed. What do I mean with that? First of all, flexibility in time. So there's still a lot of companies where you do 9 to 5 work. You just come in the morning, you have your lunch break and then you leave and that's it. But of course, in the situation that we are at the moment, we have people working like in the evening or in the early morning, because in the middle maybe they have to take care of their kids or take care of their relatives. So we really need a flexibility in time. It's no longer the case that everybody who is working on a project is basically online or basically together at the same time. We have to have flexibility in time. Second is place, obviously. So we have a lot of people working from remote. So what does it mean? It means that we can't have papers anymore, or doing brainstorming in the same room. That's something that needs to change. And then speed, right? We have to be respectful to our co-workers who have a lot of challenges at the moment. Maybe, as I said, that have to take care of their kids because they can't go to school, or you have a sick relative, or maybe they're sick themselves. So we can't expect the same performance from everybody as in a normal situation. So we all have to understand that and be respectful to each other. That is a special situation, and we have to respect different work speeds we have here. The second is also very important, not a lot of people talk about it, is asynchronous communication. What do I mean with it? So synchronous communication is if I really directly talk with each other in person or on the phone, that's easy. But if you have people who are maybe not available at the moment, or maybe they're in a completely different time zone, maybe they're sleeping at the moment while you are working. So what you really need is asynchronous communication, which means you have to be able to work together with someone without being together at the same moment. And tools for that is chat, for example, or other workflow tools that we develop at Nextcloud. So this is better than directly calling someone. And by the way, this is also important or a good thing without a pandemic, because if you just always call someone, you interrupt the people all the time. While if in other ways of communicating, where with chat, for example, they can look after the messages when they have time. So it's also better for productivity overall. The third is transparency, being as open as possible to everyone. Okay, so if you're not in the same room in the same building, everybody's sitting at home remote, it's so important that everybody has the same information. You have to be communicative, you have to be transparent, you have to share all the information you have. Otherwise, you lose this team spirit, you lose the productivity goes down, because if the company falls apart because not everybody has the same information, then this is not working at all. So be transparent as absolutely possible. Then you have to trust people, and that's something a lot of people claim, that they trust their employees, but there are lots of them who actually don't. Lots of them really need to monitor the people, that they're in the office in time, that they leave the office in time, that the breaks are not too long. And this is this kind of micromanagement, that's not a good thing. And if everybody's at home, you can't do this in the first place, right? You don't know when they start to work and stop to work. So you have to trust them. And that's so important. You have to be result oriented, which means it should not matter when someone starts to work or stops to work, or if they're sitting in front of the computer all the time or not. It's only important that the results are good. So that's something that's absolutely key. Then communication is so important, right? Always over communicate. It's so much better to even repeat something several times instead of not communicating something at all, because then people feel disconnected, they don't have the information, and that's not helpful. Okay, so these are the principles we came up with years ago, but they became so important now with the current pandemic. So how does this really work in real life? So how does this really work using Nextcloud? So there are lots of different aspects to that. Let's first talk about access. Access to the right information, access to the right applications, tools, to everything. And this might sound obvious, but believe me, if you look inside a lot of companies, they're not prepared for that. You have access if you're in the office. If you're outside the office, you don't have access. Of course, that's the first step to being productive from home. So I'm not a big fan of VPNs or other like clunky corporate tools where you enforce people to use certain applications or like monitored devices from your system administration team or something like that. We really believe in bring your own device. People should be productive on any device they have. It doesn't matter if it's like, it doesn't matter what device it is. Can be a phone, can be a tablet, can be a laptop, doesn't matter. People should be able to work from everywhere they want without a VPN. And that's something, of course, we can do with Nextcloud. With Nextcloud, we have password policies, which means we can enforce certain security standards even if the people use their own private devices for something. Maybe someone has like 5 minutes of time to check an email while they're, I don't know, waiting at a supermarket or something, which is important in these unusual stressful times, but then still have the highest level of security, and we can enforce that, for example, here with password policies. Another thing is two-factor authentication, right? Even if you bring your own device, you can have really high security standards. And we support all kinds of two-factor authentication in Nextcloud, and that's absolutely important. Then remote wipe, right? That's something, maybe a private device is like lost, or I don't know, is no longer trusted, or I don't know. It's so important that you can go into your settings and delete a device. And everybody can do that, right? The sysadmin can do it too, of course, but you yourself, you can also manage your devices. Maybe you realize that, oh, the tablet is now used by the kid at school, and they still have the company data in it. Maybe I quickly delete the company data, and you can do this at any time. We have some artificial intelligence built in, a neural network that detects suspicious logins, right? So we can detect if a person logs in from an untrusted IP space at an unusual time and give a warning to the sysadmin, but also to the user themselves. Again, this is so important if you work from home, outside your corporate network, not using your corporate desktop, bring your own device, but still have the right security to be sure that the login is not compromised by someone. File access control gives you the possibility to create like rules where you can say, look, this data can only be accessed from this kind of person if they're in the VPN or if they're actually in the office building, because it's super important. But other documents can be able to be accessed from home. So you can actually have this different document classification and have this high security that actually someone only working in your local network has, but still endorse bring your own device for most of the documents. So you can actually combine those different things and enforce it as an admin. End-to-end encryption, also something that's very important. So if the device is compromised, or if something happens with the network or with the server, it's always good to be more safe than sorry later. So we support all kinds of encryption and also end-to-end encryption for super secure documents. Another thing that I have here in the access section is a new feature which is called user status, which means a person can, when they start to work, automatically check in. They can say, hey, I'm here, I'm online now, or hey, I'm offline, I have to cook, or I have to go somewhere now, I'll come back later. You can communicate this with your colleagues via user status. You can also know if someone is like sick or on vacation or what's going on, and this automatically shows up in the shared dialogue, in the chat, and all kinds of different places, so you know what's going on with the person. Okay, so this was the first part I wanted to talk about, which is access. Okay, so it's so important that everybody has access to the data, even if they work from home. Of course, access is only the first part, because then at the end, if you have access, then you really need to do something with your documents, with your files. And for that, it's so important that you can access all your documents from everywhere. Obviously, that's something Nextcloud can do. It's a file sync and share solution. So the idea is that you no longer need applications like SharePoint or some Windows network drive or something. Everything is Nextcloud. You can sync and share it from everywhere. You have different views to access your documents. If you have something more visual, PDF documents or movie files or pictures, something, there's elegant ways to access your data. Doesn't matter what they are. Obviously, sharing, collaborating with others is super important. So I have very, very powerful sharing features with permissions, password protection, expiration dates, and all kinds of things. Then if you're sitting at home and you have access to all your company documents and you have like, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of folders with documents and you really don't really know what's going on, it's so important to have documentation. So we introduced a feature where you can actually document on top of a folder what kind of documents are in this folder. You can see here, this is from a project. You can see the milestones and you actually know what's going on and what this folder is. So that's super important. You don't need to go somewhere or call someone, hey, where is this file? You can actually see it in the documentation. Another thing that's very important if you don't work in the same office but disconnected is that you are able to lock a file to have exclusive access to it, right? Because some documents you can work together collaboratively. I'll come back to this later, but other documents, like if you have a Photoshop file or something, movie file, maybe you work on a marketing video and you edit the file and someone else editing at the same time, then you have two versions, and to prevent it, you can say, no, I'm working on this now, I have access to it, and it's only me. Of course, then others, if they see the document is locked, maybe they want to chat and ask, hey, what's going on? I also wanted to work on that, and I have our integrated chat here, which is super helpful to coordinate again outside the office. Of course, we have mobile apps for iOS and Android and tablet, so you can really access and do everything. Doesn't matter what kind of device you have. Push notifications are super important, right? It's like you get a message if something is happening with a file that you're working with, if someone wants to talk with you, chat with you, if you're running out of quota, or if something happens. That's a really nice way to communicate. And again, as I said earlier, asynchronous, right? You don't need to respond immediately, but you see, hey, there's something interesting, and once you have time, you can look into it. Desktop client is also there, where you can synchronize your files offline to your desktop. Maybe you don't have the best internet connection at home, right? Or you work, like, from remote, from a country where internet is slow. Then with the syncing client, you can actually sync all the important documents offline, work with them, and then once they're changed, you synchronize it on up to the cloud again. But this happens then in the background. It doesn't block you from being productive. Data access engine is a cool feature because a lot of organizations, they still have like SharePoints or other basically data silos in the organization, but this can all be consolidated into Nextcloud. So Nextcloud can be your tool for remote work, for being productive from outside the office by mounting all the sources into Nextcloud. We support access control lists. So as an administrator, you can really grain control over who can access what folder, who can read and write based on groups, for example, and other metrics, so security is guaranteed. Search is very powerful, so you can find all your files and folders and chat and calendar entries and contacts and project management entries, everything with the integrated search, even like searching inside documents. Obviously, this is super helpful for remote work. Okay, so this is working with documents and files. Again, you should do this, you should use all these features. Don't use paper, right? Paper is in the office, paper is not at home. Please don't send papers by mail around, that's not good. Please be a paperless organization, and these are document workflows that we have here. Okay, let's talk about communication. Obviously, communication is super important. So in Nextcloud, we have Nextcloud Talk. It's a very important tool we have. You can chat with your coworkers. We have a video chatting tool where you can have video calls, one-on-one or group calls. Everything works for mobile, including push notifications on your phone. If something happens, you have that. Screen sharing to really work together on documents. Here, for example, someone is sharing a Photoshop file, others give feedback, you work together here. Upload a file directly into a chat channel, that's super handy. You can organize webinars or basically moderated meetings where it starts at a certain day, everybody is invited. Before that is a lobby, and then the call starts. Useful for webinars, but also like for big corporate company meetings. We have integrated into chatbots, so some automation things are useful. So chatbots can also interact with other software you have in your organization by triggering actions directly from inside your chat. And of course, the chat is integrated into all kinds of other tools. Here, for example, if you share a PDF, you can directly chat with everybody else who is looking at the same PDF. Okay, so communication, great. But at the end of the day, you really want to edit documents. So how can you edit documents? So for that, we have several solutions. First of all, we have our very nice lightweight markdown editor, text editor built in, where you can just type in notes and brainstorming ideas. And this is especially cool because it works collaboratively. So if you share it with others, then several people can review it together, be in the same document and work together with everybody else. And of course, you can have a chat and a video call while working on the same document. So this is nicely integrated. That's a very, very cool tool. It's really like sitting in the same office and brainstorming about something. Of course, you also have Office documents, and for that we have different solutions integrated. This is, for example, Only Office with the solution, which is integrated Nextcloud, where you can work, edit your Office documents like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, everything you need. And again, this also works collaboratively together with other people. This is, by the way, the second solution we have, which is Collabora Online, which is also an option. We have two options you can choose, but both work this full nice Office integration to work together with others. And again, you have the feature here to do a video call and a chat while collaboratively with several different cursors work in the same Word file, for example. That's super, super useful. What I showed you so far was all in the browser, but of course this also works on mobile. Here is a tablet, for example, where you can edit your Word document collaboratively together with other people directly on your tablet. And you can protect your documents from like leaking to the outside by adding watermarking based on certain tags or user groups or other criteria. That's very, very helpful to have this watermarking for against data leakage. Now quickly about groupware. Obviously, there's also important that you have calendaring that is like shared with everybody. You can coordinate who is doing what, when, where. Nicely shared calendaring with different views. Obviously, you have a free busy view where you can see if someone else has time, if you want to book a meeting. If you send someone an invite with one click, you can automatically add a talk room there. Super useful. You can read your mails inside Nextcloud. Very powerful direct integration with documents in Nextcloud files. Again, it's very useful if you're sitting at home in your home office to have everything together, everything combined in one application. It can automatically detect tickets. At the moment, we don't do a lot of traveling, of course, but in the future, if you have a train ticket, a plane ticket, or a hotel reservation, it's all automatically detected in your mails and can add it to your calendar. And project management, Nextcloud Deck is a very, very powerful Kanban-style project management tool, which is really, really helpful for a lot of people. Okay, so these are basically the ways we work together as Nextcloud remotely, even before the pandemic, but during the pandemic too. And for most of our people, it really didn't make a lot of difference because we use these digital communication tools anyways. But of course, there's also the open source community. So Nextcloud has this very big open source community of over 2,000 volunteers that do testing, feature requests, development, packaging, all kinds of things. And they're all also not in the same office all the time, obviously. Right? And for that, we use GitHub. GitHub is a very powerful, popular tool where we have all the code, discussions, feature requests, pull requests, and everything there, and everybody can contribute. You can also do this by writing a bug report, for example. Everything is open. And again, this is asynchronous, right? You don't have to recall someone, say, hey, I found a bug. You type in the bug report, it's recorded, and once someone later looks at it, they can find it. It's very nicely across time zones, across different continents. Very nice tool. Translation, the same. It's translated by to a lot of languages, 96 languages at the moment. Again, this can be done asynchronously by our community. Super productive. We didn't really notice any difference through the pandemic here. promotion, marketing material, everything is there. And at the end of the day, of course, contributing code is also very easy with pull requests, which is open for everybody. Okay, so at the end of the call, I want to talk quickly also about some social aspects, because so far I talked about the right tools, and the tools are important for the company culture to stay productive, but the social aspects are also very important. So as we all know, the current situation can lead to depression and isolation and other negative effects, and that's not really good. And we came up with several ideas what we can do here to keep everybody together, to keep everybody motivated, to keep the social ties between everyone, even if we are remote and not in the same office. So the first thing we introduced were a virtual water cooler or virtual coffee machine. Basically is like a place, it's like a talk room here in Nextcloud Talk, which is always open, and if you want to grab like a coffee, I want to chat with someone quickly, you can just quickly go into this room and maybe there's someone else and I can just do a little bit of small talk. Hey, how is your day? How is it going? It's just like a coffee machine, like a virtual office kitchen where you can quickly meet people. So that's nice to talk with people sometimes. Another thing is co-working calls. That's also something we introduced, that this is something our teams and project teams do from time to time. If you have a few people working together on the same topic, then sometimes they just do a call which goes on for 3-4 hours sometimes, and you just in the call, you don't speak all the time, you work, but it's like sitting in the same room. You can always talk, hey, what do you think about this thing? Or hey, where do you know where this information is? Oh, no problem. Just if you sit together in the same office while you're being productive, but you're connected with other people, still connected. And then of course there's also the evening part. So we introduced regular beer o'clock calls, which are just social calls in the evening, where we don't have this rule that we don't talk about work-related things. We just get together, talk a little bit, maybe have a beer or not, actually, and just being social and like, yeah, stay connected. Okay, which leads me to the summary. I think remote work can be more than a compromise. If you have the right tools, if you have the right company culture, that you trust people, that you stay together, and you have all the trust, all the tools, all the processes built up in a way, then remote work can really be nice. So we are doing this before the pandemic, and we will do this after the pandemic too, because it has lots of benefits. So our people, they save the commute time, right, which at the end is money, of course. They can work from everywhere. It's family friendly, and from a company's perspective, it also means that we can work with the best people. Because if you only want to hire people that are in the same city where you are, then you don't find the best people, because the best people might work from somewhere else. And if you have a company culture where this is possible, then you can build the best team and really stay productive. So the right tools and the right company culture, and this can really work out nicely. Okay, thanks a lot for this presentation, and as far as I know, we still have time for some question and answers. Thank you.